All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're live here with another episode of the Rob Anderson Show. Today, I'm very fortunate and honored to have my friend Jane D'Souza on board for a wonderful conversation. Jane, how are you doing?
I'm good, Roberto. Or Robbie.
Yeah, either or.
Thanks for
Uh,
having me over.
yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on. And we were catching up a little bit beforehand, and so I think we're gonna have a great conversation. And so, just first off, to let our listeners know a little bit about who you are and how we met, if you want to just kind of introduce yourself and yeah, just so people are familiar with who you are.
Yeah, so I'll introduce myself based on the labels I have. As in, I am a registered nurse, and I am also a bioenergetic wellness practitioner. So I help people through their healing journey, help them with understanding that our body is not just flesh and blood and chemicals. It interacts with the environment, with energies, and everything that happens in our body is all controlled through vibrations and frequencies. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here and having met Rob. And I guess we met how many years ago? 4 years ago?
3 or 4, I don't know. I lose it. It seems like yeah.
Yeah. And I've just gotten into this whole natural healing and just loving life. And I guess that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And so yeah, I guess it's been 3 or 4 years ago now, right? Because kind of through the Quantum Lounge was when we really started. I guess you guys saw me on a show during the
Yeah, with
pandemic.
Nicholas Vinyamin.
Yeah, and so it was either you or Carl, and you said, Carl, you got to come see this guy. He's from Canada or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I think yeah, so that was the so if anybody who's watching have seen the shows that Carl and I did together, then you'll know who he is. But so Carl reached out to me through Facebook, and then yeah, we started doing the weekly Quantum Lounge call, I guess, yeah, 3 or 4 years ago now. And so we do it every week. And I mean, usually we're always there unless traveling or, so it's actually been a really good journey, and I've enjoyed it. And it was really good to get together during that time. Um, Especially with like-minded people, with what was going on with everything. And I'll remember, always remember the first time we got together in Carl's backyard, because that was the first time that we actually, I think a lot of us had even gone out in public in a year or two. So it was nice to get together in person, because usually we were doing calls through Zoom. So it was nice to meet everybody in person. And so Jane, I just wanted to ask you about, your transition and your journey into all of this. I know that you don't necessarily want to share some things and that's fine, but I want, like, what really made you look into maybe alternative medicine, and, how did you transition from maybe just being a normal nurse, if that's the right term, to
Yeah.
being a bioenergetic healer?
Yeah, so like everybody in the medical field, just been following whatever they tell you, do all the protocols. If you're sick, you do this. If you have diabetes, you have metformin and the injections and all of that. And, when I was in nursing school at university, we had this course that I had to take at university, and it was all about the big pharma and how the pharmaceutical industry can actually decide whether you're sick or not. So in the past, you had high blood pressure if it was, say, for example, 130 over 70. I'm just giving you a number. And then the pharmaceutical company wants to sell more blood pressure pills. They can, change and do the research and tell you, well, now anything over 125 is considered high blood pressure. Now everybody whose blood pressure is is 125 and above falls into that category, and there you start getting blood pressure pills. And I noticed, people are taking blood pressure, cholesterol pills for 10, 15, 20 years. And it's just prescription after prescription. They start taking pills, and then there's like shaking of the hands or stomach issues and stuff. And I realized, like, that doesn't seem like a treatment. That's just suppression. That's just like putting a band-aid and say, well, let's measure you after covering the bandage and see, oh, your blood pressure is fine. But that's not a cure. That's just a band-aid. And so that's how I learned that they were making billions and billions of money. And then they would have these ads, and all the ads were all like, oh, if you have your legs are shaking, you have restless leg syndrome, call this company and you're going to get medication. I mean, without even, and so somebody who's just naive sitting, oh yeah, my legs are always shaking. They think, oh, whoa, I got restless leg syndrome. Instead of like, maybe your legs are shaking because you're a bit nervous now. Maybe there's something in your mind, like maybe there's something else, like people just jump to medications. So I learned all of this, and I'm like, wow, the university is teaching us all this stuff of how this whole system is all about making money. And it's not about health. It's not about really curing somebody. You're taking this medication for whatever. Say even if I give you 5 years, then your blood pressure is fine. No, it's for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking, okay, I love nursing. I love helping people, but this doesn't seem like a cure. This seems like, just money rolling down the drain. And there's no prevention. I mean, people talk about prevention, but if you go, to the doctor's office and you say, well, I have constipation, they're giving you medication. You go take this, go buy milk of magnesia or whatever, instead of like sitting with you and saying, well, what's going on? Like, are you eating vegetables? Can you afford to buy the vegetables? Are you walking? Like the digestive system is not just taking medications and things coming out. The stuff needs to work. And why is it not working? Maybe if you ask questions and figure out why and deal with the root cause,
Yeah.
then maybe you can probably help the body heal. So anyway, I mean, after working for several years, I just noticed like people were getting sicker and sicker. And what are we now, 2024? And people were a lot healthier when I was in my 20s. I'm 50 now. I would see people taking medications at, let's say, 70, 80. Grandparents would start their blood pressure pills. But now I see people in their 50s and 45 taking like statins and blood pressure medications. So I'm thinking, with all this advance in technology and all the stuff we know, I feel like people are getting sicker earlier as opposed to, being sicker later in life. And I just realized uh, that something's wrong, like something's not right. And I took some time off in 2020 and listening to different podcasts. And I met this, I didn't meet the guy formally, but informally, Mia Schneider. And he was talking about he was born legally blind and how he helped himself recover his eyesight. And he's been helping thousands of people recover from myopia, cataracts without surgery, glaucoma. He's helped people who were paralyzed start getting sensation in their legs and stuff, and help people through muscular atrophy where the muscle doesn't work, and then you can just get it back to working. And I realized, wow, there's another side of it that I was never thought of, or it was not even my awareness. And I started getting into researching, and then I came across NES. And I know from thousands of years, the Chinese medicine, and I've seen a lot of people, follow different breathing techniques, walking, forest bathing, and things like that. And I noticed, they were healing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, oh, don't listen to the people, those miracles and stuff. Even people in churches, they would go to something and they suddenly, some of them are healed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously our body is capable of healing. And that's when I realized I got into the whole bioenergetics and how our body is literally, we have electrical fields, magnetic fields, and we are all about frequency and vibrations. So there's more to just pharmaceutical drugs. And our
Yeah.
body is so capable of healing. And that's how I became a bioenergetics wellness practitioner.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. There was so much, I had to write down a few things. And I also set the timer because I forgot that I was like, if I don't set that timer, we're going to talk forever. And we're trying to keep it under an hour. So anybody watching can at least tune into the next show so we can finish our conversation. But you hit on so many things there. And I think that I kind of joke around because it's like we have people in Canada say, oh, you have free healthcare. And it's like, it's not healthcare, it's sick care, because healthcare is, it's got to be foundational, right? And like you said, I think root cause analysis. And that, like, and you and I were talking about it before, and I don't even know how much I've shared on my show about my unhealthy past, but I feel like I'm a good example, like a crash test dummy of healing, because I was super unhealthy. I weighed 250 pounds. I was smoking cigarettes, drinking, doing other kinds of drugs. I don't want to get into um, eating fast food 3 times a day because I was, working a corporate job and had a 3 hour commute. And so it was like I was not eating healthy, I'd have some Tim Hortons for breakfast, I'd have Chinese food at lunch, and then I'd have pizza for dinner, and I'm living that life and thinking everything's fine. And then one day it hits you and you're like, no. And it's a slow, like you said, kind of start researching. And I think, I took 6 months off and I was like, I can't, I remember looking in the mirror and seeing myself, and it was like I was not willing to really look in the mirror and see how big I was, until I stepped on a scale one time for the first time in a few years. And I was like, oh my God, I got to go the other way. And, but so looking at foundational healing, and that's what so much of the medical industry, and, being an industry, it's profit driven. It's reactional and not foundational. There's not, like you were mentioning, there's not a lot of, there might be some doctors, I don't want to make blanket generalizations, but a lot of it isn't root cause analysis. Like, what's your diet like? What's this like? What's, like, how much are you eating? What are you eating? How frequently? And I think that's what we need to look at. And there's a lot of things there. And like you said, I've always thought the same thing too. It's like, well, you get diagnosed with high blood pressure. How do you know you just didn't have high blood pressure when you went to the doctor? Like, I've noticed when I have high blood pressure, I can tell. But it's not permanent. It's not, it's like, well, maybe if I eat certain foods or going through stressful time, or, so you can really, like, so, somebody gets diagnosed with high blood pressure, then they're on medication for the whole time, when really it was just, they were going through, maybe a stressful week and they were eating unhealthy, and then they went to the doctor thinking, getting something in their mind where that's stressing them out too, that something's wrong with them. And then they get put on this blood pressure medication for the rest of their life. It's like, oh, well, who does that benefit? Lifetime customers for the medical industry, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's
I was
that's
gonna say, even things like high blood pressure or increased sugar, right? Instead of just jumping into the diagnosis, like what if that is like a signal, like if you're just shutting off the signal, you don't know what else is wrong, right? If your pressure is increased for a reason and you just start taking medications so that that pressure doesn't show. But what if there's something else going on and that's why your pressure is high? So how like it's important for us to participate in our own body instead of relying on the doctors. I'm not saying the medical system's not good. I mean, like if you've broken an arm, you have an accident or something, you need acute care, it's amazing. But I'm talking about chronic, like for long-term stuff. We are constantly dependent on the doctor is telling us what we should and shouldn't do, or like a nutritionist telling you what to do or not. Like, I think we need to start tapping into our own body and, like be empowered about decisions you make. Well, maybe I'm going to stick around with this pressure for a bit, change some lifestyle habits, do some research. Let's see if this is going to change instead of just jumping, on the first silver bullet. Ooh, I'm good. I can still eat my chips. I can sit and watch a movie, or I can get stressed and fight. But that's okay. My blood pressure is fine. I can go and get tested because I'm taking 5 pills, right? So your warning system is now shut down.
yeah,
As the
true.
warning system is shut down, you don't know what else is going wrong, right? It's the kidneys that could be going wrong. So if you don't stop and listen to that warning signal and look at it and see what you can do, because if you start fixing this, then maybe then you get fixed your kidney issue or your heart or whatever. They're all so connected. And so the point I'm trying to make is like for us to be empowered and make decisions on our own. Do your own research.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful advice. And I think you have to, not that, like you said, not that you don't, doctors aren't good for certain things and a lot of that, but taking the responsibility and the authority, like I was giving the example before we started recording, I think that of a gentleman who, got diagnosed with diabetes, and he was like, just, yeah, no, I'm not accepting that, and it's like, well, what can we do to change, to make those changes? Like there's times I'm not really a fan of going to doctors unless I've broken a bone or something, or I've needed surgery. And there's certain things that, you know, for physical adjustments and stuff like that. But other than that, you know, like my journey years ago, like I started doing little things like, you know, making shakes and juices and saying, okay, I'm, you know, like I did the reverse. I started eating healthier rather than quitting smoking because I figured, you know, smoking's so addictive. So that'll be the last thing that I did, which I eventually did. But I knew that that was going to be my last thing because so as I whittled it away, but it's difficult when you start making changes, you know, like there was a time when I became a vegetarian, and then you got to deal with, you know, like family events and stuff like that. Like, you know, nobody's vegetarian there. So it's like they start making fun of you, or you know, like, well, what are you going to eat? And like, and then, and so you almost have to do trial and error yourself to see, okay, like, it's okay. I don't need to eat meat. There's other vegetarians out there. Why do I need to, just because my family or I was raised that way, blah, blah, blah. So it's like really taking the power back into your own hands and seeing what works for you, what doesn't. Like you said, you know, like if you have high blood pressure, what are the other factors that are contributing to it? Like you didn't just all of a sudden start having high blood pressure. There's reasons that it got high in the first place, because if you were eating a balanced diet, living a healthy life, no stress, would it be high? Maybe not. Maybe, you know, I can't say for sure. But so another thing too that was interesting that you mentioned too was healing vision. And I know you're not wearing your glasses right now. Sometimes I actually was
Now take
talking.
them off.
It was talking with you that you said you were doing it, and so I started doing it, and actually I do it. Not so much when I'm at home, you know, at the house and I need to see things, or I'm reading or whatever, need to see things close up. But when I go on my daily walks, a lot of the time, I'll take them off, and just because I think it's good to get natural sunlight in our eyes too. And these have UV protection on them. And I kind of feel like there's a war on ultraviolet rays, like not to say that they're not harmful, but I think we need more. It's like there's so much of it. Like everybody, I swear to God, I tested one day and I was like, I want to see this. And I swear, I'm like, I would say 8 out of 10 people wear sunglasses all the time. Every time I see them walking, and I see the usual suspects, you know, when I'm out on my walks, they're always wearing sunglasses. And I don't think that that's healthy. I think we need some natural sunlight into our eyes. And I do a little bit of, you know, sun gazing in the morning or at sunset. And, you know, it's not to say that the sun's rays aren't harmful, or, but only in excess, right? I think but if you're always blocking it out, always wearing sunglasses, always putting on chemicals in your body to stop the sun, that's not healthy, is it?
Yeah. So I want to quickly share this. Sometimes I talk too much, so you're going to tell me quiet. So when I took some time off, and I came across this gentleman named Mia Schneider, as I mentioned to you earlier, and he talked about, like, since I think I was 7, I started wearing glasses, and obviously every year the prescription just got bigger and higher and higher. And then I started wearing contacts. Somebody said, "Oh, if you wear contacts, you know, it's gonna stay." Didn't really. But anyway, I just wanted to look pretty, and, you know, I wore my contacts, and then the glasses. And then, you know, of course, when you go, you've been taught, you know, you got to have that UV coating. It's good for your eyes, and like everybody else, that's what I learned. UV coating, and, you know, don't look at the sun, and always wear your sunglasses and stuff. But as I started researching and finding people that heal themselves, and I believe 100%, not only believe, it's a knowing, your body is capable of healing everything. It takes time and, of course, effort. So Mia Schneider had these exercises. He says, don't wear your glasses, unless, of course, when you're driving or you really need to see something, you know, never strain your eyes. So if you decide to take off your glasses, that's okay. Even if I can see a blurred you, it's okay. Just like relax, because you want your muscles to just relax. And then we never, like back in the days, we always had great peripheral vision, right? Because if there's a tiger or something coming, we always used our peripheral vision. But now when you wear glasses, you're only in this frame. Like that's where you're focusing. And now there's not enough lubrication, because you're focusing through this. You're not relaxing your muscles. That's why they say take off your glasses, because then you start automatically, like, do a few exercises or whatever, you start improving your peripheral vision. And once that improves, everything else improves. And then he talks about the sunlight. So again, I'll quickly tell you, the sunlight enters, like, if you wear sunglasses, right, you're not getting all that, the light going into your retina, it's blocked. But without the sunglasses, It's going to your retina. It's very important that it goes into your retina, because then it goes into, I won't name all the other stuff, but into the brain. And then from there, the neurotransmitters will release serotonin, which makes you happy, right? So it affects your mood. And that also, it goes into the photons go into your pineal gland. And your pineal gland is responsible for creating melatonin, which helps your circadian rhythm, which helps your sleep cycle, waking up, sleeping, your mood, and things like that. And on PubMed, and if you go and do some research, they've shown like constant enough sunlight will also reduce the viscosity of your blood. So the thickness of your blood, it won't be as thick. So you won't have issues with strokes and stuff. Sunlight is so important.
That would reduce blood pressure too, right?
That's right. That's right. Because when your serotonin and everything, it dilates the blood vessels, right? So sunlight is so super important. But obviously, like, you don't stare at the sun in mid-daylight. And if you start like previously, because I used to wear those like those UV coated glasses, my eyes became so weak. So if I'd go out in the sun, like my eyes would start watering. But now I'd say about 3 years later, like, I'm out all the time, and it's my muscles have strengthened, and I'm not watering, right? Of course, if you're driving and you need to wear the sunshades, no problem, but try to avoid wearing sunglasses where you can, and it's so important, extremely important.
Yeah.
And then they had I don't know if you've heard about this research in Australia. They had this tribe of the natives. They started giving them sunglasses, and they found that the next generation started getting skin cancer.
Really?
Now, over the years, like, none of those tribals ever got skin cancer, the population. But so what's happening is now we're putting these sunglasses and we're tricking our body. So your retina is telling me, no, it's dark, but your skin is getting the sunlight. So that causes like chaos in the body. And then your body and your skin starts reacting, and they found skin cancer forming from that for that reason.
See, that's
So
interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'd never heard that before, but it's like an interesting correlation, because you're sending your body mixed signals because your skin thinks it's sunny out and your eyes don't. And so it's like, what the fuck's going on? And so, yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah. But it makes sense to me. And so I stopped wearing, like, I would go out, like, I stopped putting sunscreen on probably over a decade ago, the last time I did it. And just from the simple fact that I was like, I don't know, like, why? Like, it's just something intuitive. Like, maybe I did some research too, but it's just something that I was like, okay, well, when I go out in the sun, I'm just going to cycle in and out. So I'll know, like, you don't go out in spring on a hot day and you don't have any tan and you don't go outside for 8 hours, you're going to get a burn, right? So you do it, kind of cycle in and make sure that you get a base layer. But I've only had like one sunburn in 10 years. And that was just because the first time I went out, I was like, oh, it was a little bit cloudy, so I didn't think I was going to get burnt, and I did. But it wasn't that bad. But, out of 10 years of not wearing sunscreen and not using sunscreen, I didn't ever get sunburned or heat stroke or anything like that. Just being mindful, even if you're at the beach and you're out in the sun for 20 minutes, you say, okay, well, now I'm going to go in the shade for 20 minutes and then I'll come back out in the sun. Just being mindful, and even doing that, taking care of the yard. It's like, okay, if it's a really, really hot day and you're mowing the lawn and doing the hedges, just make sure you do 20 minutes in and then go take a break, have some water, and get out of the sun for, cycle in 20 and 20 and things like that. And so it's really interesting too. And I was reading something recently, I'm not sure what it was, but what they were saying was that a lot of times when we get diagnosed with bad vision as kids, it might just be a temporary thing. So this person was saying that, like the high blood pressure, maybe your eyes are going through changes. I don't know, I'm not an optometrist, but maybe you're just going through a phase where you're eating something, or you're going through a growth spurt and your eyes are taking a little bit more to adjust to the rest of your body or whatever. But their theory was that sometimes vision just gets blurry for a brief period of time. But then kids, when you said 7, I think I was in grade maybe 9 when I got glasses, but maybe it was just a period where I had bad vision, like for other reasons. Maybe it was my diet, and then you get these glasses put on you, and you become dependent upon them. So and usually it gets worse, and you have to your prescription. You got to get a better or higher prescription. So it's kind of like that self-fulfilling prophecy. But
I
Go
wanted to
ahead.
share with you what made me a believer. So I started doing those eye exercises,
Yeah,
and so Mia Schneider says, like rub your hands together, and then every day just like cup your eye,
yeah,
and you can play some good, lovely music or calm, restful, but just like rest your arm and not with a lot of pressure, and just cup it right for
yeah.
20 minutes. And I had a few those eye what's it called? The things that say E,
Uh,
I, O, U,
yeah,
Y,
yeah,
those eye
the
charts, right?
alphabet charts, yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm determined I'm going to do it, right? And I did it for 20 minutes. And until now, you can try it at home too. You put a chart, you can, without your glasses, you can't see it. Like you do this for 20 minutes. So your muscles and everything's so relaxed.
So you keep your eyes open underneath or
No, no,
closed?
closed, closed.
Okay.
And then after 20 minutes, and if it's a dark room, it's even better, right? And then you open your eyes for brief 3 seconds or 4 seconds, you can see the chart, like you can see what you couldn't read. So that made me like, I am a bit of a skeptic. Like I love my science. So I love to, like, that's why I've been so curious. And when I find things that really, I see that, then I believe it. So I saw those letters that I couldn't see. And when I realized that there is something, like there's something about our muscles in our eyes are so constricted and so uptight. Um, and that's what's causing this vision problem.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, who knows what the reasoning behind it a lot is too, especially growing up in North America and Canada and watching a lot of movies and playing video games and a lot of TV time. Like, and everybody always said, oh, it's bad for your eyes. Maybe it was worse than we thought, but like one guy, so I forget, maybe it was that Huberman guy. He's on YouTube a lot, but he was talking about how now, especially, we're spent so much time in front of the computer. So he said every like 90 minutes or even every hour, if you can, to go outside, to take a break and to look at, like, find somewhere where you can look at the horizon, because so much of our life now is right immediately in front of us that we've lost kind of that long range perception, right? Where people aren't spending as much time outside and things like that. And so I think that's a good recommendation. But I've been doing, and like you said, being able to see, there was something, I don't know if it was like a hit of adrenaline or some sort of like fight or flight thing, but I was walking without my glasses on and something happened and I looked over, and for a brief moment, whatever it was that happened over there, it like caught my attention, and I looked over and I could read the license plate on the car for like an instant, and like, but there was nothing there. I guess it was like nothing to be worried about or whatever. It was just a sound. And then I couldn't see the license plate. And I was like, that's weird. And I tried, like, and I'm like, I can't see that license plate right now. But when I needed to, or like my body thought that I needed to, it was like for that brief split second, I looked over and I could read that license plate that was too far away. And I was like, I couldn't even read it while squinting, and I could put my glasses on. So there's something to it too. And I think in one of David Hawkins' books, he talked about how, we become so dependent upon them that it's almost like a bad habit. And it's so, yeah, it takes practice to get out or to heal. And like, that's a lot of healing is taking the time to do it. And I think what he was saying is that he was using an example too, that you don't really need to see stuff, a mile away, unless and when your body does need to, that it's like a power that will become available to you, but we're so used to peering out and seeing everything so crisply, like and so I don't know, I'm kind of, been doing, not wearing the glasses on my walks and trying to, like, when I can, even when I'm at home, I used to always just put them on to read because I sit far away from the computer. So what I would do is bring the computer a little bit closer and then zoom in the text so that the text is bigger on the screen, right? So little things like that, and trying to, who knows, maybe bad vision is a symptom of, well, obviously if you've been diagnosed with it as a child and you've become dependent upon glasses all those years, but what if it is something else that's dietary, or now we live in a society that there's so much outside radiation and signals and EMF and all that sort of thing. So who knows, maybe that's affecting our vision too, right? And so there's so many things that we don't know. And so I guess it's like those little, like you said, doing your research and being willing to try and do it and keep up with it, saying, well, I did it for a week and it didn't work. Well, what, if you wore glasses for 35 years, maybe it's going to take 10, 20 years to get it back properly because you're just so used to it, right? And it's like, so I always wonder about things like that, you know, so just sticking with things when you're kind of doing your own research or your own testing, right?
So one of the quick things, like even if you're sitting and looking at the computer, and you know, we all have to work, and sometimes you're on it for 8 hours, right? One of the suggestions that was mentioned by Mia Schneider, and it helps a lot of people relax their eyes, is like maybe every 10 minutes, just look far, like
Yeah.
literally for like, I don't know, 20 seconds, but not stressfully, just so what you're doing is you're relaxing your eye muscles, because then again, it's constricted and it's like, right? And so what happens also, we're having a lot of cataracts, is because there's not enough lubrication and we're constantly focusing and
What
constricting.
exactly is a cataract?
What exactly?
Yeah, because
I don't
I
want to
don't
go
like.
into details, but then the lens, there's protein formation, and then it gets cloudy and stuff
Okay.
like that. But the reason is, why does it become that way? Like going to the root cause is so important. You know, so if we start working on it now, maybe we won't have a cataract at 80.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and so I stopped wearing contacts because, so I wore contacts for years because I had glasses that I didn't like the look of them, and I was, you know, because I was wearing glasses since I was a kid, and you know, like people calling you four eyes, and it's like, well, whatever, I don't want to wear glasses anymore. So I went through the phase where I was always wearing contacts, you know, to the point daily, and it's not healthy because well, like probably the lubrication thing like you mentioned too, but also oxygen isn't getting into your eye, right? And so, and then so after kind of researching that and going to a doctor, and she said, well, you've been wearing and I told her that I was wearing my contacts all the time, and but at the time, so I guess one of the main reasons why I stopped doing it too is because when I got a motorcycle, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna wear my contacts, it's gonna be way better, but it's actually worse because a lot of times dust just flies up in your helmet, and then in your contacts, like when you just have your eyes, it's fine because it'll, you know, even if it's just a little piece of dust or whatever, it'll get washed out. But in your contacts, it gets kind of like stuck in the contact, and then you know you get itchy, and then the eye doesn't wash it out properly. So I, after like about a year of doing that, wearing contacts while riding my motorcycle, I said, you know what, I'm just not even going to wear contacts when I ride my motorcycle anymore. So I'll just wear my glasses. And I got this pair of glasses that luckily the arms are straight and everything, and they fit like perfectly into my helmet, right? So that was I made that switch, and I'll never go back. Like I don't even remember the last time I wore contacts, and I don't really see a need to, because it's like, well, maybe, you know, if I was doing something, playing a sport or something, and I didn't want to wear my glasses, I might throw them on or something like that. But generally, like, you know, even going to the beach and swimming and things like that, it's like, well, whatever. It's like I take my glasses off when I go swimming. So I'm trying, because of you, so thank you for that. I'm trying to spend more time not wearing my glasses. And so it's all these little things that add up, right, to our natural healing. And like I said, I had such an unhealthy lifestyle that for, you know, about 32 years before I started saying, okay, I'm taking it, you know, and I'm going the other way. So, you know, it might take me 32 years to heal. I don't know, but I do know that, like you mentioned earlier about the power of the body to heal, because I've done it personally. I've gone through it, and, you know, and it isn't easy. You're gonna have to make lifestyle changes, different foods. And, you know, like I've I love my junk food, like I was mentioning before, and I now, but I don't even really like it now. I prefer, you know, I'd rather a homemade cookie or something rather than a chocolate bar now. It's like, you know, so
Oh, I
something
love
that,
chocolate.
what's that?
I love chocolate, and I still, you know, I have, I guess, in the beginning, you know, I was more about like, oh, health, and but then for me now, I feel like I'm only talking my own opinion. I feel like I want to enjoy, I want to enjoy that chip, or I want to enjoy that dairy milk with nuts. I love it.
Yeah,
But again, like everything else, it's all balanced, because your body is definitely capable of getting rid of toxins too. But
yeah,
it's like how much of garbage do you want to put in, right?
exactly right.
Or like, or you weigh the risks versus benefits, you know, right?
Yeah,
Okay, well, I want to pick out on this cake today, but then think about it, what it's going to do. But when you're eating, it's very important. I have learned, and I followed Dr. Joe Dispenza and a lot of researchers that have done experiments over decades on the power of your mind and your
yeah,
thought, and your health. So going back to Like if you decide to eat that piece of cake or chocolate or pizza, whatever you love, like this is a beautiful life, enjoy it.
Pizza,
Eat
yeah.
it, but eat it like with gratitude. I don't know, somebody worked in that pizza shop and they put the cheese and somebody planted that tomato and it's delicious. It smells lovely and your body just wants it. Enjoy it. And then you can and enjoy it. But if you start thinking in your head, oh my God, this is full of junk, and this is going to make me fat, and this is this, you're literally telling yourselves on a vibrational, on a frequency level, okay, let's get into this constricted mode now. This is not good for me. What have I done? You're conflicting. Like here, your senses have enjoyed it. And then, but your mind is telling your body, well, this is, and so again, now there's this, there's no coherence, there's like chaos. So I do believe like everything, of course, is discretion and a balance. But if you do something, just love it. And then you can, if you, then you still have a choice after. You want to go for a walk, you want to bicycle, or if you can't do any of that, you know what, I ate pizza yesterday, maybe 2 days later, maybe I'm going to walk another 10 minutes or whatever. So for everything you do, at least try and do something that'll benefit yourself. So
Yeah,
and
no,
yeah. And I
I
was just
totally
going to
agree with
say,
you.
sorry,
Yeah.
going back to self-healing, like you mentioned, like I again became a believer because I experiment with stuff. And I experimented, like I used to have severe allergies, environmental allergies to like, I went and got tested, I think 7 years ago, to dust and pollen and ragweed and like, I don't know, zillions of things. And I met a spiritual teacher who was talking about the power in your mind and what you like, what you vibrationally say. The sound has vibrations. You're telling yourselves, your mind, when you have a thought, it's sending frequencies, and all like we are electrical beings. So those frequencies, they affect us. And when like say for example, if you constantly think, oh, it's dusty, oh, that's dirty, like you're telling your body that's dirty, and then your body goes into again chaos. So anyway, I didn't know, I was telling myself maybe subconsciously like the pollen's not good, or I don't want to go in the forest, or like ragweed. And so I started, every time I would see like dust and stuff, like of course I'm going to clean it, but I would say, well, I'm not afraid of the dust. Like my body doesn't have to fight it. It's all good. Like I just accept it. It is what it is, and I'm not going to be like against it. And I would do that regularly. And you know, my kids would say like, Mom, you're crazy. Like why you? And I'd be like, no, I just want to say to myself that, and I'm going to try it. If that's what it takes, I'm going to experiment with it. So I experimented with it. You know, I'd go and I'd be sneezing, and I would say to myself sometimes I'd make fun and say out loud, oh, my body's fine. You know, it doesn't have to overreact to this. And my kids, just to kind of wind them up, like you're crazy. But internally, I would say that to myself. And then I also realized, I know scientifically, like when your body, when there's nasal congestion and all this stuff, your body is inflamed, right? Like it's, so I also learned that I'm going to start having less inflammatory foods, like, you know, cutting down on sugar and fried food. So I did a few changes. As I said, I always cheat on the weekends, is my chocolate and chip night.
I love chips too, so it is.
Oh, they're delicious. So when you eat it, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I within it took, I would say like the next season, because you know that the season is quite short for the environmental allergies. The next season, that was it, was gone. So that's why I can just talk for myself. Like I became a believer.
Yeah. And that's, I used to have really bad allergies too. And at a certain point where it's like, okay, you know, maybe they were because of my diet and my unhealthy habits. And like, it was, you know, a symptom of something else that was, you know, like the root cause analysis again is a whole bunch of other things. So you have allergies because of this. And I was listening to one gentleman, doctor from Canada, but I think he lives in New Zealand now, but had all this research that he said, I don't know if all allergies per se, but he was saying whatever he was equating to, that allergies had a large part to do with gut health. And so if your gut health was off, you'd be allergic and your body's trying to fight things that it thinks is wrong with it and all this sort of thing. So there's so many things that we don't know or that aren't, but it's also too that if you have allergies, like I used to get allergies, like, it's to the point where sometimes I'd have to leave home from work because I had, a sinus headache that was just like clogged and all that stuff. And I think a lot of it has to do with, the subliminal mental advertising. Like if you had TVs or there was, news channels or CP24, there's always like, Reactin commercials and things like that. Oh, it's that time of year. Oh, it's allergy season. It's blah blah blah. Everybody's saying it. Like people are talking about it, and so it's like like even if you're not saying it to yourself, everybody around you is telling you it's allergy season, and you're like, oh well, it's time to have allergies. Like, and so your body's just thinking that, and so now, yeah, I think like I had maybe some mild allergies like once or twice, like, but it's hard to tell, like if I have a runny nose now, I don't really get sick. I think the last time I had a little bit of a sniffle, and I was like, well, is that allergies or do I have just a little something? But I rarely get sick, like, and I know the last time I got sick, it's because it was on my 40th birthday and I ate sugar all weekend. I'm eating like a fat kid cake, had all my cake, and I was having ice cream, and then a couple days after, I was like, oh my God, like I got all this leftover ice cream from everybody came over, and I had all the cake left over, and I was like, well, I got to finish it, and so I
Oh,
ended up
yeah. And
getting,
it's delicious. I mean, oh, wow.
but my body was like, no, you're getting sick. And I was like, okay, but I swear that's like the only time I've been sick. I rarely get sick nowadays because I really don't entertain sickness as much. That's what I say. I don't entertain it. Before, when, like, I think a lot of times it's like we want to get sick because we want the attention, or we want to take a few days off work subconsciously, or we're stressed out, or we're doing the grind too much and our body's just had enough. And it's like, it's saying, you need to be like, your body gets sick, so you'll take some time off, right? Because we're always under stress, overeating and all this stuff, too busy and all that stuff. But when you kind of take your life and slow it down a little bit, and, and all that stuff, like I found, like, it's like, yeah, no, I don't remember the last time I spent a day in bed, from getting sick. If I do get sick now, it's like, okay, it's a little sniffle, or a cough or
And
whatever.
it's,
And it's
it's
like,
good to have sniffles and stuff like that because that is actually a way of the body detoxifying, right? So your body eliminates toxins,
yeah,
through the gut, like through your bowel movements, urine, when you're exhaling carbon dioxide, and your skin and liquids, right? So sometimes there's toxins or whatever. Sometimes it's even emotions and they need to be released, and they're released in the form of a physical manifestation, like through sneezing and things like that. So it's okay as long as it's not chronic, constantly, like a constant runny nose and stuff. Then like something that's again a warning signal. Something's off. Let's work on what's going on instead of suppressing it with Claritin and Reactin. I mean, I know that you have to sometimes take it, like if you have to go into a meeting or something, and it's okay to take it for, a short time, but do you want to be totally reliant on it? That's
exactly right. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that, and that's what it's like. Even myself, like I'm kind of like you, like I want to be, not that I don't want to ever, rely on outside sources, but it's like I want to be foundationally well, so that, like, even when I hurt my lower back, I messed up the discs in my lower back, and I was like, oh my God, like that was just some of the worst pain that I ever experienced. And it's like I always hear people, oh, like they threw out their back, and I remember kind of thinking to this person, like, suck it up, buttercup, like how bad can it be until you actually have an injury yourself? And then you're like, oh my God, that's what these people are talking about. So, but I didn't, at the time, I didn't really have money to be going to a chiropractor and all this stuff, and I just wanted to figure it out naturally. So I started doing yoga, and now I don't do it so much. I do stretching and do things that are, more like my own routine, not necessarily a yoga routine, but I wanted to be able to take care of myself naturally. I don't want to be reliant upon a chiropractor. I don't want to be reliant upon always going to the doctor. I want to eat healthy. It's like if I want to go live in the mountain for 2 years, like I want to be able to take care of myself, and like be natural about it, and not be worried about, like, I know people who are like, as soon as they get a little bit of cold, they're at the clinic, like getting stuff. And it's like, why? There's, like to me, it's just, I don't do it. Like I avoid those places at all costs. Like the last time I went to the doctor was only because I got my thumb severed off. So it was like, you kind of have to go, right? Like, but I want to take care of myself naturally. And so my journey kind of started, I think, as I mentioned, years ago. And it really started with water. And I started drinking, I mean, it was probably from watching a Dr. Emoto movie or something like that,
Yes.
right? And I started drinking distilled water, and I even forgot about the structuring it and the blessing part of it, but I figured like, you know, doing that, and I started doing that part again more recently because I rewatched the documentary. But most people think that, oh, you know, like, yeah, the tap water's fine. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, just because they say it is, and it's fit for healthy drinking, because I think that, you know, on the topic of foundational healing and stuff like that, there's, you know, especially with what we were talking about, like nutrition. And I think like nutrition versus right, it's like not all nutrition is the same, like nutrition versus energetics. Like people were so focused on calories and this and that, and it's like, well, yeah, but not all food is grown equally, and things like that, and not all water is equal just because it looks to the human eye equal, right?
Yeah, like Dr. Emoto has done experiments with, you know, with he's had a glass of water, and he literally, the words and the thoughts that you have will affect the crystal of water. So he's
Yeah.
had like thank you, like, and anybody can do it. Children do it in school as well. This experiment, you have thank you in a glass of water, and then you have another. He did this is like in the journals, water, distilled water, and it said. I hate you, I will kill you, right?
Mhm.
And he just left those two, I think for 6 hours, literally 6 hours. And then what he does is he freezes the water, and then he looks at the crystals under the dark field microscope, and he takes a photograph. And the crystal, the water crystals in the water that said thank you were coherent, beautifully structured, geometrically structured. And the other one was like all chaotic. He did
Yeah.
that with music. So he had Beethoven classic music playing, and then he had like real heavy metal rockers, but heavy metal sound playing. And I'm not saying every heavy metal song, but very chaotic, low vibrational frequencies, that kind of heavy metal music. And the crystal was again deformed. And our body, and that's going back into health, is our body is made up of like over 70% of water. The
Mhm.
planet, it has over 70% of water. So we're affected, and water carries information. So the very fact that that label that said thank you carries information, and the music, the sound vibration has that frequency or information embedded in the water. And so that water, when you drink it, like it's affecting, like we are 70% water, it's taking all that information, and you know, electrical signals are going through our body. So that water, the water you drink is so important. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, not everybody can afford to drink distilled water and things like that, but that's okay. Like even he's experimented with, I think those Tibetan monks praying over like the water that was not so good. And so again, it's the intentions, the thoughts, the vibrations, and that water crystal was a lot better than like I think some soiled water.
Yeah.
So that's, and this is all research, like this is all science. It's not like woohoo stuff. This is
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
stuff, right? So water carries information, so important, you know.
It has
Okay,
memory
so if
too,
you're
right?
fighting, take your water that you're going to drink and put it in the other room.
Well, that's what they said even about in the documentary, is that be careful who you eat around too, because people that are, you know, like angry and things like that. And I think that, you know, growing, when you think it's woo woo and you don't know the science behind it, then you don't like, you're like, well, yeah, whatever. I bless my water. I said thank you. But it's like the intention. I'm learning a lot about like the mind versus the heart. And so if you just say something from the mind, like, oh yeah, thanks, water, like there's no love in that. But if you're like, if you say it with intention and actual gratitude, be like, thank you so much, water, for, you know, for the energetics, and I'm so grateful. Like if you say it from the heart, like, and bless it like that, you can feel it. And I was talking about being a man and, you know, drinking and smoking and not being so sensitive to those energies before. But now that I've kind of purified my body and stuff, I am more sensitive to it. So I can feel almost like that heart resonance when I am really grateful. I'm not just going through the motions and saying like, yeah, bless you, water, or thank you. Like, you know, you're like showing actual gratitude. It's like you can feel that whole resonance within your body. And so that's what the water picks up on. So if you're just going through the motions just to do it, it probably doesn't have the same effect as if you're actually putting all of yourself into it, right? And so what did I
That's
want
so
to
true
say?
what you said, Rob. Like they've done thousands of experiments, but I think it's called the Heart Mind Institute, and they have like it's again, since I'm working with frequencies, they have checked like your frequency in your heart is extremely powerful. The heart can override the mind if you just step into the heart. So, for thousands of years, like people said, different religions and different traditions and cultures, the grace before meal, or like obviously now there's a difference between saying it from the heart and just saying it because you want to please your mother-in-law kind of thing.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
But that information, like that's why when somebody cooks with love, it tastes a lot better, even though two people might use the same ingredients, because there is that frequency and vibration in that food.
Well, that's important too. And that's what I was listening to a gentleman speak about it. I forget who it was, but it was like nutrition versus energetics. So growing our own food, speaking to the food, blessing the food when we're growing it, and almost having like a symbiotic, if that's the word, symbiotic relationship with your food as you're growing it. And it's like, I even one lady, I think it was Marina Jacoby, she talked about how back where they were from, they would put the seeds underneath their tongue for a minute before they planted them, and it would take some of your DNA. So it would be like literally the food is being grown for you kind of thing, right? And so I think that that's so true, because we weren't taught that. And I don't know I don't know if you were in Canada when back in the 80s, but or when you came here, but I just remember, no, well, the Canada Food Guide back in the 80s was like, it was designed to kill people, I think, or like if they didn't know, like, because it was just absolutely ridiculous, like the amount of bread and meat and all this stuff they wanted you to eat every day. And I was reading in a book, and I've read this several
But it's
times
stuck
now.
in people's mind, eh? Like people still think
Exactly.
about that. They don't look at the new guide.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. And it's so hard to break those habits. But so all the food, and it's not grown the same. Like back, like there was this lady at the grocery store a few years ago, and I'll never forget it, that she was like looking at all the options of the food, and she seemed, I don't know, maybe if she didn't speak English or something, because she looked like she was from a different country. And so I asked her if she needed help, and she's just like, I don't know what to decide upon. She's like, there's just so many options, and I could tell, like, she was probably like 80 or 90 years old, and when she grew up, stuff was from the farm. It was grown from people who loved growing food, because that's what they did. They were farmers. Now there's factory farms that it's not grown with love. It's raised with pesticides. It's for profit. So yeah, maybe there's some nutrition in that
Yeah, so it
food.
is, yeah. I always tell, like, I'm just going to share the information because I've learned. Again, food, right? You can buy like chicken from the main areas like the maple leaf and stuff. But I don't know if you know, but there's like 10,000 chickens in one little coop, and they inject them with antibiotics, because when you have all these chickens together, they're going to peck on each other, and they know that they peck each other. And once they peck each other, there's infection and stuff. That's why they already pump them up with antibiotics and hormones. And anyway, the energy in the chicken, or even if you buy the cow from sorry, beef and steak, the cow is very intuitive. They know they're going to the slaughter home. They know all of that. Like they see what's going on. So energetically, when you eat that food, and no offense against like chicken, and I cook food in the house, and I'll cook stuff, and we try and get it from the farm. And I know it's not cheap to get it from the farm, and of course we all have to do what we can do. But I'm just talking about energetics, just so people are aware. Energetically, you are consuming something that's just so cool, and not really running around freely in the grass and eating natural grass. They're eating all these synthetic corn feeds,
Yeah.
and they've got all kinds of pesticides and stuff. So if anybody knows basic biology, the food pyramid, right? So when you have toxins on the lower level, like the fish, and the bigger fish eats it, so it's got 10 times more toxins. And then the bigger animal eats it, it's got now 100 times more. So as we're going up the food chain, not only the toxins, we're also consuming that energy. Like when there's a difference with how you die too, like whether you're murdered or a natural death, because your body changes, the trauma and stuff changes the chemical nature and proteins in your body.
Yeah.
Those energetics, when consumed, like, with trauma, you'll have more toxins in your body. We all know, like, if you're stressed, your sugar level is naturally going to be high. You're going to get diabetic faster. Like it's a fact, because your stress hormones and adrenals, they cause a lot of sugar. And so that's just an example. And you're stressed and you've got all these stress hormones, as opposed to somebody who's relaxed. Their body has just like, more what should I say, good stuff rather than less toxins than somebody else.
Less
So those
chemical stress.
energetics
Yeah.
are so important, extremely important.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, so when you're eating that, you're eating the stress like that, like it's recorded in the animals, like epigenetically or whatever you want to say, and like, it's so you're actually eating that. And so that's the thing, is that I think that that's a good point about we look at the energetics of food rather than just the nutritional value, because like back in, there's always a fad diet or this, or you got to do that, and it's like, I know we all come from different backgrounds and we all have different DNA, and we're raised differently, and like people in the Arctic, yes, they're going to be eating probably elk and salmon and like but it's natural stuff that's caught, like the difference between hunting wild game or going to the grocery store to get something that's factory produced or whatever. So there is that. And for myself, like, these aren't things that you even really think about, because, going back to that lady at the grocery store, when she was young, it was, probably not pesticides, probably organic farm, family farm, like raised really high quality food. And so but now we have all these options, and it's like, well, why do we even need to be stated organic? And one of the people at the even by the Ontario government, she said, well, because it's certified organic, but she said there's still 2 chemicals that they have to spray on the crops, like legally, from the Ontario government. So even the organic stuff still has 2 pesticides, so it's not 100% organic, even the stuff that says it is. So just people to be aware of. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was like whatever. And even the stuff, another person was mentioning that, well, yeah, even the stuff that's not maybe sprayed on it, but stuff that's grown, like you don't know what the soils are like and things like that too, right? So there's so much to think about it. And it's like, well, back to growing our own food, I guess, right? Because then you really know that it was grown with love, right? And your intentions behind it. And if you're the one taking care of it, because I know that when I lived with my brother and his fiance, and they built a garden box. And so for a few years there, we were growing our own food. And it's like, oh my God, like maybe at that time, I didn't even realize how the energetic aspect of it, of growing it with love, I didn't, maybe wasn't too into that side of it, but it definitely tasted a lot better.
Mhm.
So fresh. You just go out in your backyard and in the garden and pick it, right? So I think that all these things are coming to light, and people are you know under like kind of waking up to what's going on, and to the fact that I would say, I was having this conversation the other day with somebody, and it was like, I said, I think like 90% of what people call food shouldn't even be classified as food, because most of it's junk. Like there's a difference if you're eating chips and having sweets and stuff. We know that that stuff's not good for us, but when people are kind of misled to believing, it's like the old bait and switch, like the stuff that you grew up eating isn't as energetically healthy for you as it used to be. So you're like you have to eat more of it. And I've read several books that said that humans on the average diet, especially in North America, we eat anywhere from, I think, we could probably survive on, if you're very physical, if you work construction, maybe half of your diet. But the average person who doesn't have an overly physical lifestyle could probably survive on 1/10 to 1/3 of their current diet. And so also, if the food is energetically depleted and doesn't have good nutrition, and isn't grown well, you have to eat more of it. So it's like the net benefit of it isn't as good as the food that's grown with positivity, love, and in a healthy manner, right?
Yeah, and I was just going to add to it also. About people, like, again, this is a bit way off, but there are people that don't eat much food. They don't eat and they can still survive. So, like, again, research, and I can just talk only about myself. I was a typical person that was taught to eat breakfast, lunch, snack, tea time, dinner, then, and then go work out or whatever to stay slim, right? But you gotta eat, and like, you have to eat the protein, and you have to eat this, like vegetables, okay, but you gotta eat your meat, you gotta eat your fish, or you gotta eat your lentils. Vegetables, whatever, because that's the way my family grew up.
Yeah.
And then I worked in a palliative unit, and I saw, like, people, a few patients, and I would say several. This is all, again, it's all experiment. Like, I was watching, and I always was led to believe, if you don't eat, oh my God, you're going to be weak, you're going to fall, you're going to die, you're going to faint. During, I think, Good Friday and stuff, I would see people fainting out of the church and stuff. And so I had this belief system: if you don't eat, you're going to fall, you're going to pass. but I saw this like several cancer patients. Now, if you have like terminal end cancer, your body is already, you know, not a lot of nutrition. It's not in the best, it's not an optimum body. So somebody and in stage 4 in a palliative unit survived for 5 days without food. And then she passed away, I think, on the 7th or 8th day. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, how did she survive? Like, and she's not even a healthy, like, average person. And I saw this on and off. And there we go. Like, there's my belief system broken up now. You don't need that much food to survive. And then going back to, like, I grew up in India and I was talking to one of my family members. I lived in the city, but I think she lived in the village. And she mentioned to me, you know, like there's a lot of people in the village that all they would take, so they would work like I think a 7-hour day, early in the morning, evening, and heavy work. You know, they didn't have all these equipments and stuff. They digging and stuff, but they were barefoot on the ground. They had natural sunlight, no sunblock and stuff like that. And all they would eat was like a big, like a flat bread with onion and some green chili and maybe a little vegetable. And they would be doing hard, heavy work, sweating it out. And after researching, I found out like your body is we're electrical beings, whether you like it or not. Go and check, find out, research EEGs, ECGs, MRIs. Why do we use those technology? Because it measures the electrical signals in your body. MRI, what is MRI? There's magnetic field coming in, your electrons, they jump into a different level, and then it finds the difference. So that, for people that don't believe that we're electrical and magnetic, the system uses ECGs, EEGs, and MRI. So that there right away tells you we are electrical and magnetic. So now going back to our body needs to be charged. So the way we get full energy is really from the sunlight. So you're getting these photons. So you can get sunlight directly on your skin and you get your energy. You can get sunlight from eating vegetables. And if you eat different colored vegetables, you're getting all the different spectrum of light. You're boosting your energy there. They have their feet bare on the ground. There, they're getting charged again with the electrons from the earth. Now, like earthing and grounding is like the new famous thing and the new fad. But this has been going on for ancients and several years. Back in the days, I know in India, people would only wear leather shoes. And then I think in the 60s, they invented the rubber soles. So there, people now were disconnected to the earth, right? So just like that's another example of how people with barely any food, but working outside, can survive. Like they don't need all these nutritional supplements that we're going and like, oh, let's get the selenium, let's get the magnesium, let's
Yeah.
calcium. And here these people, and not only like are they surviving, like that population has expanded, you know, like even in China, like if you see some of the countries, like I'm not saying their quality of life is great, but you see where they're getting the energy from, like
Well,
the
to be able to work a physical job like that, you need it's proof though, right? And you're totally right. In that book that I was reading too about how much we overeat, it said that traditionally, like we think that we get most of our energy from the food. So if we eat more food, we're gonna have more energy, and that's not true because the net benefit of a lot of foods we eat, it might be negative if we eat a lot of bad food and our body has to process it. And so I think it was Wallace Wattles in The Science of Fasting or Eating Healthy or something, and he said that, you know, really the food that we eat is just to maintain the physical structure of the body, not to power it, right? So, and there's things like that. And you're right about, you mentioned fasting too, and for 5 days. And I started dabbling in fasting too, and you know, started one day intermittent, and then I was like, I'm gonna do a 2 day, and then I did a 3 day, and then I did a 5 day. And honestly, my energy, like the first 2 days are the hardest.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because your body's just so used to it. And after that, like on day 5, I probably could have kept going. Like I just stopped because I said I was going to, and you know, I was looking forward to having some food, right? Like,
I
because I
did a,
like,
a 4-day water fast too. Like
exactly.
and it's perfectly natural to feel like, you know, irritated and like, oh, what are you guys eating in front of me kind of thing. But of course it was a choice. I wanted to experiment. And yeah, the first 2 days and your body's detoxifying. So when it detoxifies, you will get a headache. You will have feelings of crampiness or whatever. But
Yeah.
that's part of the process of detoxification. But yeah, after day 4, oh my God, I was dying to eat my soup.
Well, even for me, I noticed that like if I'm, you know, after like day 3 and onward, in the morning, I have no bags under my eyes. No, like they're just gone. So it's true that like, you know, and I try to eat fairly healthy, but I still have breads and I like cereal and with milk and things like that. And so like I wouldn't say I eat this like the cleanest diet or whatever, but I do notice that um even though I eat less, I could probably whittle that down even more because like I said, after day 3 or day 4, looking in the mirror in the morning, like just know like I look like, you know, like a couple of years younger just from fasting for 3, 4 days, right? So there are benefits to it, especially, you know, maybe some people in cultures, if they don't overeat, they don't need to fast, or they have better energetics in their food and things like that. But for traditional diets and things like that, I think it's worth looking into. But I
Yeah, the
think that
whole.
the alarm's going to go off, Jane. So maybe we should
Okay.
try wrapping it up because we said we want to keep it around under an hour. But like I said, we can definitely do another one and continue our conversation. But so just I guess just to kind of wrap it up and bring it on home. What do you? I know that you know talking about bioenergetics, I always like to ask people about what they're inspired to do, and obviously sharing, you know, your healing journey and how things are doing. Where do you see, you know, maybe healthcare going in the future, and you know what's inspiring you about where you're working and what you're working on?
Yeah. So I see, I guess we are constantly evolving, and I see where like as people are opening up more to alternative holistic ways of healing and understanding that the body is not just the body, like our thoughts, how we think, what we say affects everything, you could have like an obese person and they're just happy and stuff and they're healthy. Like it's not just about the size of your body, it's your mind. It's so important. So I see us evolving. This medical system, I think, is going to be revolutionizing into like frequencies, and vibrations, and even like people in the medical field with mental health and stuff, they talk about like being happy, having affirmations in your life, hanging around with people who are positive and uplifting, because that is going to affect the physiology. That's going to affect how you think about yourself. And once you change that construct about yourself, you start loving yourself. It's just you're just going to get better and better. And I can see us evolving, and people are going to start getting healthier. And I see people now are taking more responsibility for their health, as
Yeah.
opposed to relying just on doctors, because obviously to see a doctor you have to be on a waiting list, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
I
I
don't
don't
know, I
know.
haven't been to.
Yeah, I don't have a doctor either. So I don't. Like I said, aside from the last time when I had to go to surgery, I don't even remember the last time I went to a doctor. So
Yeah, but technology has evolved. Like I have this the my health, and this has different frequencies. So I have like hockey referees, and I have people that come for pain, looking for issues, like they have whatever, like say for example, like people are open now, they come for like, oh, my knee is hurting. I do a body field scan and we'll find, there's an energetic blockage on the neck, or like the scan will show any subconscious blockages. And so people are open to understanding, when they release a conflict or a trauma or something that they're feeling uptight about, suddenly that muscle pain on that shoulder is gone, right?
yeah.
So it's all connected. And I can see us as a species evolving to understanding our bodies are so intelligent, and digging deep to get that power and becoming healthy again.
I totally agree, and I
And
love it.
thank you, Robbie, for
Yeah,
your lovely interviews, because you're spreading the word.
yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for coming on. I'm really happy that we got to do it, and I'm grateful that we've become friends and we have our weekly calls, and so I love our little quantum lounge group, and it's always awesome to get together, and that's how we grow, right? Is to be open and listen to people and see what they've gone through, to see what they're doing, and to, like you said, to be open to new things and new ways of being, and like how you started off the conversation about the power of our bodies to heal ourselves. And I think a lot of it for me is like peeling back the layers of stuff, like that for me, getting to a baseline of you know I guess it's like removing stuff and then building back and seeing what works for you. I think that's important for people. So thank you once again, Jane, and we'll do it again so we can keep on, keep our conversation going. So I hope you'll come back.
Sounds good, Robin.
And stick around, and after I'm done the recording, and we can have a little chat. But thank you once again, Jane, and have an awesome day.
Love you.
Love you too.